In today's video, we're going over offensive line stance and starts. Hey, what's going on YouTube? Mr. Football here today. Today we're here to talk about offensive line stance and starts. We're going to basically take you through a video that I filmed of myself getting down here at my old age of 28, still getting in offensive line stance, and talking about how we get into the stance. I'm going to talk to you guys about two different types of offensive line stance, really probably three if we look at the different variations. But we're going to start off kind of where we're currently at today as far as like how I teach this. The first thing that we want to do is make sure that we have a good base in our offensive line stance. We don't want our feet to be too narrow. We also don't want our feet to be too wide. And so somewhere between, shoulder width to a little bit wider, just slightly wider. In my current stance, I'm going to get in a right-handed stance on this. I'm sorry, this is in the way. Oh, I can move it. Look at that. But what I'm looking at here is my stance, being that it's shoulder width apart. I'm in a right-handed three-point stance, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure this is my right foot. My right foot's going to be slightly to the arch of my foot. So if this is my foot, it's a weird analogy, but like that foot is lined, my toes are lined up in the arch of that foot, kind of right there. If you want to think middle of the foot, that's perfectly okay. That's just how I think of it. From that point, we just want to make sure we've got a good base. Sometimes I like to check my feet. My weight currently is kind of on the inside of my knees, going down to the insides of my toes. I'm a big toe. I squat down. I look, you get into a good preset position. And then we're just putting the right hand down here. So, if you notice in my stance, like my feet haven't really changed at all. We want to make sure especially if you're coaching guys, like make sure when they get in their stance, sometimes this little motion that I do right here, this kind of like sinking your feet and kind of if you notice here, what I'll do is I'll kind of just cushion my feet just a little bit, kind of move them in, and then just settle into the stance. Okay, and then I'm putting my hand down. The thing on hand down is like if we're in this right-handed three-point stance, a slight stagger, we want to make sure that we're pretty light on our hand. There's different applications. With this stance, I'm pretty much doing a lot of zone blocking out of this. I'm not saying this stance has to be used for zone blocking. You can use it for anything. It's just a basic stance to get into. Okay, so we go from there. I could easily switch over to my left and put my left hand down. Okay, and our current way that we're teaching it now is our right side is going to be in a right-handed stance. Left side of the offensive line is going to be a left-handed stance. So there's some different applications to it, and really, I'm showing it here for those left-handed people. It's the same concept. We'll show it from the side here as well. Just looking at it from the side, it's kind of weird on the angle here, but my right foot is slightly back than from my left, so that's that right-handed stance. And just slightly putting a little weight on the hands, not very much. If you just notice there, just lightly putting the hand down, make sure you have your eyes up in your stance. You don't want to be looking at the ground, okay? Here's a good example of that left-handed stance from the side, okay? And here's a good angle of kind of where my feet are in line. So if this is my toe, if I was to draw a line, I'm in the middle there of that foot. So that's a good left-handed stance. I felt pretty good about that one, to be honest. We'll go ahead and skip ahead to the other part of the stance is just being balanced, just a balanced stance. So where we want to start here is, and I would say just with this, like I'm looking just to be balanced. So essentially my toes, and I just did this in the other room, but my toes here are just kind of in line here with each other. Not a whole lot different. The one thing that I would say, kind of helps that I talk about in this video, which I may end up posting this part of the video up, is just trying to almost you kind of pigeon toe. Like And one thing that helps a lot of guys if their toes want to flare out is to pinch your toes in like I'm doing here, pinch them in, and then get into the stance. So you just, and if you see that, like some guys will, when they get in their stance, their feet, they squat down, their body weight goes, and so your feet just go like that. But what I just showed you there, okay, was, getting down in that stance, getting in that pigeon toe. I call it pigeon toe, where your toes are in, and then when you squat down, just naturally those feet, you have to sometimes overcompensate for different people. So it all works. I'm just trying to help guys get into a balanced stance, and that's kind of the main focus of what that was and why I get into that stance. But then when we look at this stance, the main difference here, whether I'm right or left-handed, I'm trying to put a lot of weight out front. Could be good and bad in certain cases. I feel like when you put a lot of weight on your hand, you're going to tend to lean forward, which, if you're coming straight off the ball, that's one thing. But like, as you see with this stance, like to me, like when I start to lean forward, I'm more like a defensive lineman. But we're going to have a defensive lineman video where I really talk about that stance and stuff. But see, like I go back and I watch this, and this was a video that I did like during the quarantine. When you see like my hair's big and stuff, like this is pre-haircut days. But like when I look back at this, I've kind of gone away from teaching this style of stance. It's something that, for at least the last few years that I just kind of got accustomed to. But now that I've kind of gotten away from it, I can see a lot of the flaws in my own self. I didn't play in this stance. And so it's just something I've coached over the past few years. But like, I can see where the application goes into certain aspects of the game, especially like, if you want to make sure your pad level's low. But it's something I've just kind of gotten away from. But that's just another version of the stance, is just, getting down and having just a little bit of lean to do that. Okay, so the next part of the stance, and I'm going to talk about a 2-point stance, and this is really the last one. But when we look at a 2-point stance, the only thing that I'm changing from going from, the 3-point right-handed stance to the 2-point right-handed stance is for the most part, all it is I'm just taking my right foot here, and I'm just dropping it back a little bit. So in this clip right here, I'm in the 2-point stance. I'm just resting my hands right now, and I've got my right foot back just a little bit. My right toe is essentially on my left heel, and I'm just looking up. I'm not trying to get into like a kick slide or anything like that. Like I'm still trying to, take a 45-degree step with my first step, and you can see my first step there. I'll do a couple of them here, and we'll go through the steps here in just a second. But like I said, that's the simple part. And then like, for the most part, where we go from here is we look at the left side and a left-handed stance. There's not really any difference here. Like I'm just showing you guys the variation. I mean, I've showed you guys at least 5 different stances today from that aspect. All right, so let's go with the steps. My first step that I'm going to take as an offensive lineman, and one of the first steps that I teach, is a 45-degree step. It's a one step, 45-degree step with wherever you're going. So we call it like a right 45. And so my right 45 step is that right there. Okay. What I'm doing is when I step, I'm turning my toe and my shoulders same time on set go, set hut, whatever your cadence is. And that's where I'm going first. My hands are getting loaded up. I like tight hands. Some people draw hands where they're like drawing from back here. I like the hands in tight. It just feels more natural than having to go back and then load. I just like, the hands being closer together in that regard. So we'll show you guys a couple steps here from our stances. So this is the right-handed stance, taking a right 45 step. It's a good one there. I'm looking for a short, quick step. Sometimes you don't want to get it too long. Like that one's a solid, quick step in the ground. There's a few of them I do on here that are a little long, and that happens. But we'll go through some more here. So I'm in a left-handed 2-point stance. taking that step, just showing you guys some variations. And we can do this on all of our steps and so forth. So even though I'm in that 2-point left-handed stance, I played left tackle. And, if I was able to use this step, back when I played, all those years ago, it would have been beneficial. It's just the way that we're teaching it now. And it wasn't, it's how our coaches taught it back then. Here's a side angle of the step right there. I'm just pointing my toe, my knee, getting it in line with where my blocking assignment is. Obviously, I don't have a blocking assignment up here right now, but this stance allows you to move in any direction, even if you have your toes set at a different, if you have your feet set differently, it just allows you to, get into a balanced step. I feel like this is making me quicker doing it this way. Just showing you guys some more examples here of that first step. Here's one up against the wall. I think all I'm doing here is just taking a step towards the wall. And I find that that's something easy you can do. Obviously, you guys can do these drills at home and so forth, showing you guys some of the different variations of the step. And I normally, when we teaching this to all of our offensive linemen at once. So, that's kind of how we go through, and I just I give the command of what step, what stance we're going to be in, and so forth. And, that's kind of where we go. Where we progress from here is taking 2 steps. And that's the final thing I'll show you guys today, is just taking 2 quick steps there. I guess, I'll kind of judge myself here. I'm in that 2-point stance. The hand goes down. That's not bad. Probably a little big on that first step, but, I'm just obviously going on air. If I look at that first step, we want that first step in the ground, and then that second foot's just kind of coming back. And obviously, it's just following. I just call it a follow step. You take your 45-degree step and your follow step, and by then, you should be engaged in your block. So I hope this video was helpful. Hope it was a good introduction to stances and starts from the offensive line perspective. But we'll have more videos coming out in the future. Be sure to check me out on Instagram and Twitter. You can find me at Mr. Football Coach. You can also check out our private Discord page. We have a coaching page on there where we talk about different things in coaching. As well as other things, especially if you guys are players, you can share your football gear, since we do football gear on this channel as well, and take a look at some of that stuff. And then just as always, make sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified when all videos are posted. New videos come out every Tuesday and Thursday. We will see you guys next time. I'm Mr. Football, and I'm out of here.
Perfect.